We are America. We never give up. We never give in. We give back, and we follow the science and find the answers.
We all learn about a famous time when a powerful society did not follow the science, and they ended up looking pretty stupid. It was the 17th century in Italy, and Galileo Galilei was championing the idea that the planets revolved around the sun instead of the Earth. This matter was investigated by the Roman Inquisition, which concluded that Galileo's theory was absurd and blasphemous because it contradicted the Holy Scripture. He was forced to recant his opinions, was sentenced to house arrest, and his book was banned. Galileo was censored for publishing a book that contradicted the existing power structures. Now we know of Galileo as the father of the scientific method. So with this in mind, what does it actually mean to follow the science?
That science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along.
So what is science? The first term that is important to understand is hypothesis. A hypothesis is a suggested solution for an unexplained occurrence that does not fit into currently accepted scientific theory. In order to qualify as scientific, a hypothesis must be able to be tested. A hypothesis that has been defended eventually becomes a theory, which is a bit misleading because in everyday vernacular, the word theory suggests a degree of uncertainty. In the science world, theories are only established by a consensus among scientists that has resulted from rigorous testing. A theory gains credibility when it's supported by evidence from observations and many laboratory experiments. Just because a theory has been around for a long time doesn't mean that it couldn't eventually be replaced. In a criticism of Einstein's theory of relativity, a book called 100 Authors Against Einstein was written. Einstein responded by saying, "Why 100? If I were wrong, one would have been enough." Some examples of theories that have survived these rigorous tests are the theory of evolution, the theory of plate tectonics, and the theory of the greenhouse effect. The funny thing about science is that sometimes incorrect arguments can still lead to correct predictions. In 1913, Niels Bohr correctly predicted the frequencies of the specific colors of light absorbed and emitted by ionized helium. These predictions were correct to several decimal places, even though they were based on a wildly incorrect model of the atom. This coincidence has puzzled scientists for decades. Prior to Galileo, there was not a robust scientific method to test hypotheses. Since the 17th century, science has made leaps and bounds. But along the way, there have been a lot of theories and practices that we now consider to be barbaric. Until the late 1800s, miasmatic theory was what was used to explain the outbreak of diseases like cholera or the Black Death. This theory stated that bad air was the reason for these diseases, and that they originated from rotting organic matter. The theory was eventually abandoned and replaced by germ theory in 1880. During the age of the miasmatic theory, the smallpox vaccination was created, yet doctors were not quite sure how this worked or how to extend the principle to other diseases. A medical procedure that is now considered barbaric is the heroic depletion theory, also known as bloodletting. This process to get rid of the bad blood was considered orthodox medical procedure until around the 1850s.
We followed all your instructions. I mixed powder of staghorn, gum of Arabic with boiled sheep's urine and applied it in a poultice to her face.
And did you bury her up to her neck in the marsh and leave her overnight?
Oh, yes. But she still feels as listless as ever, if not more.
Well, let's give her another bloodletting. Brunhilde!
Yes.
Even more recent was the procedure of lobotomies, which were practiced until the 1950s. The Soviet Union was actually one of the first to abandon this practice that is now considered to be inhumane. Moving forward to 1955, the polio vaccination had just begun, and the Surgeon General started receiving reports that patients were being paralyzed in the limb in which they received the vaccine. The vaccine from the Cutter pharmaceutical company, which is now Bayer, was shown to cause 40,000 cases of polio, killing 10. The Wyeth pharmaceutical company, which was eventually bought by Pfizer, also paralyzed and killed several children. Between the two of these companies, the vaccine had not been properly inactivated, causing 100,000 vaccines to be distributed with live polio virus. One of the biggest mysteries in science was that of the electron. Both Niels Bohr and Albert Einstein believed that the electron orbited the nucleus, but modern-day concepts in quantum mechanics such as Schrödinger's cat and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle have shown us that the electron doesn't orbit the nucleus at all. To make things even more confusing, Richard Feynman famously said, "I think I can safely say that nobody really understands quantum mechanics." None of this is a criticism of science. Quite the contrary. The scientific method has brought us the germ theory, which has allowed us to create a plethora of effective vaccines. The scientific method has expanded our knowledge of astrophysics, far beyond just the idea of heliocentrism. The scientific method has allowed us to discover the field of quantum mechanics. Many diseases that meant a death sentence 60 years ago can now be cured with fairly routine procedures. But unless you believe that we have reached the apex of human development, there will be things that we do today which will be considered barbaric 100 years from now.
So in any case, I was thinking on the plane about trust the science, and there's something about it. It's like, what do the data say? Data is king, data-driven science, where these things sound so right, but then it turns out that they are actually battle cries of a faction that's actually undoing something important.
And interested in rapid consensus.
Right.
Yeah.
Trust the science sounds so right, but the problem is the.
So what are we talking about here? Many people have recently championed the idea of trusting the science in regards to the COVID crisis. But I can't help but wonder if both the left and the right are getting it wrong what it means to trust the science. Let's start with the right.
We gave Dr. Fauci the benefit of the doubt. We had him on the show, radio and TV. We listened to his advice. But after months of serious miscalculations, flip-flops, cruise ships, masks, lockdowns, the origins of COVID-19, the models, projections, everything was wrong. Well, rightly now, our trust in Dr. Flip-Flop Fauci is non-existent.
Of course, Dr. Fauci is going to change his opinion over time. I would be surprised if he didn't change his opinion. This is a new virus, and as we know, science is always changing. Neil deGrasse Tyson hammers that point home in this interview.
Scientists can think all kinds of stuff, most of which will be wrong. Even in the published journals, most of what's in the journals will eventually be shown to be wrong. Okay? That's the frontier of research. In the frontier, the bleeding, bloody edge of the frontier of research, we're duking it out at conferences. You say something, I say, I don't believe you, and I got better data or different data, and I got my data from somewhere else, and you were delusional. This goes on.
In contrast, this idea of a battle amongst scientists for the best idea seems to have been lost on many people who lean left. This clip with Dr. Fauci really highlights this point.
So if you are trying to, get at me as a public health official and a scientist, you're really attacking not only Dr. Anthony Fauci, you're attacking science.
Dr. Fauci says attacks on me are attacks on science. Many people have vindictively used this logic to combat those who have questioned the lockdowns, the masks, or the vaccines. It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson says, good science is science that has emerged as consensus, following a vigorous battle amongst scientists. But I'm not sure that many of the issues surrounding COVID have reached that consensus point.
There are a very large number of scientists who have a very different view and read of the evidence that's coming out. When people say follow the science, what I've seen is they often mean censor scientists who don't agree with some scientists, the people who are who are sort of controlling policy. I myself have faced accusations of saying dangerous things when I just have describing what I see in the scientific literature.
So where are these dissenting opinions amongst scientists? The Great Barrington Declaration heavily criticized the lockdowns and instead proposed focused protection for the vulnerable. Dr. Fauci called it ridiculous and total nonsense. However, this declaration has the signatures of over 40,000 medical practitioners and nearly an additional 15,000 medical and public health scientists. Furthermore, Dr. Robert Malone, who is the inventor of mRNA technology, was banned and censored by both YouTube and LinkedIn for sharing quote-unquote misinformation.
My concerns are that the government is not being transparent with us about what those risks are. And so I'm of the opinion that people have the right to decide whether to accept vaccine or not, especially since these are experimental vaccines. This is a fundamental right having to do with clinical research ethics.
Much like in the time of Galileo, science has become intertwined with politics, because literally everything is political these days. It's concerning when you have one side that doesn't understand the idea that science is constantly evolving, and you have the other side supporting the censorship of scientists who they don't agree with. I think that Richard Feynman put it best when he said, "I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." Whenever someone says that they follow the science, it's important to question whether they actually are, or whether they are just weaponizing the word science in order to try and shut down their opposition. That's the Zeitgeist, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you like my content, make sure to give this video a like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, guys, and I will see you all in the next one.